week, and we will post it on the Ohio Business Matchmaker website and the Ohio University PTAC website. So hopefully you're here today to learn about doing business with the government and the various certifications that your business can utilize to increase chances of success, both in state and federal arenas. So the first part of our presentation today, we'll talk about doing business with the state and state of Ohio certifications. And then at 2 o'clock, we will talk about federal certifications. So to present state certifications, we have Marlene Fout. She is with the Ohio Minority Business Assistance Center, but I'm going to go ahead and have, she's going to do her own formal introduction, but we're very happy to have her today. So without further ado, I'll just go ahead and turn it over to you, Marlene. And yes, I do see a full screen.
Okay. I just messed that up, didn't I?
No.
Hi, everybody. I'm Marlene, and I'm with the Minority Business Assistance Centers. I actually work in Piketon, Ohio, at the satellite office, but our main office is in Cincinnati. We cover 17 counties in Southern Ohio, and I cover 12 of them, which is the Appalachian counties, and assist Deborah with the other 5. One of our main things that we do is certifications. So this is something that we are here to help with if you need help with it. And I'll have my information in the for you later for you to contact me if you need help with getting certified.
And I'm sorry, Marlene, there's one thing that I forgot. If any of you have questions as Marlene is presenting, please put them in the chat and I will find a good time to ask the question. Okay, thank you.
So today we're going to talk about the 4 certifications with the state of Ohio, define them, and tell you what is in it for you, the criteria, and the certification process. The certifications with the state of Ohio include the Minority Business Enterprise, which is MBE, the Encouraging Diversity, Growth, and Equity, also known as EDGE, the Women Business Enterprise, which is the WBE, and Veteran Friendly Business Enterprise, also known as the VBE. So what are the state of Ohio business certification programs? The Veteran Friendly Business Enterprise program is for veterans or for those who have veteran employees. The state of Ohio's VBE program establishes procedures for applying a preference to the bids or proposals for state contracts. The program is an excuse me, ethnicity and gender neutral program and provides price preference or proposal bonus points to certified companies who compete to contract with the state to supply the goods or services it needs, including eligible construction services. The 2 benefits to the VBE are invitation to bid. The prices on bids submitted by certified VBEs to exceed those prices on bids submitted by businesses not certified as a VBE by up to 5% and still be eligible for the winning award. And request for proposal, which is the scores on proposals submitted by the veteran-friendly businesses. They be up to 5% of the available points lower than the proposal scores submitted by businesses that are not VBEs and still be eligible for the winning award. Excuse me one second. The Minority Business Enterprise program, the state of Ohio's MBE program establishes a 15% set-aside procurement goal for state agencies, boards, and commissions in awarding contracts to certified MBE businesses. The MBE program is an ethnicity-based program designed to assist minority businesses in obtaining state government contracts for goods and services. The EDGE program, Encouraging Diversity, Growth, and Equity. The state of Ohio's EDGE program establishes an annual procurement goal, which is currently set at 5% for state agencies, boards, and commissions, as well as guidelines for state universities, in awarding contracts to certified EDGE businesses. The EDGE program is an ethnicity and gender neutral program designed to assist socially and economically disadvantaged businesses in obtaining state government contracts in the following areas: construction, architecture and engineering, professional services, goods and services, IT, and IT services. The Women-Owned Business Enterprise Program, also known as the WBE, is the newest certification the state offers, and it is the state of Ohio's WBE program. It's designed to assist women-owned businesses in obtaining government contracts. The program provides certified companies an opportunity to receive reciprocal certification with other states with whom the state of Ohio enters reciprocity agreements. And you do have to apply separately for the WBE program. So what's in it for you? Let's go over the program benefits. First is contract assistance. You have the opportunity to compete in a sheltered bidding process for goods and services, which that's the MBE, and be eligible for subcontracting opportunities through the EDGE program, exclusive to certified businesses. All of them are listed in statewide searchable databases of certified companies, which is useful for marketing in public and private sectors. Financial and bonding assistance through the Ohio Development Services Agency, the exclusive access to certain loan and bond programs, which can provide access to capital and bonding for firms that may not qualify for traditional lending or bonding. And then you also have access to certain business development programs. And right now there is a couple I think they're wonderful loans out there, loan opportunities if you're certified. Non-government opportunities. So being certified isn't just about getting contracts with the government. It includes the certification can be used to market your business to non-governmental entities who also have supplier diversity programs like corporations. And it also consider marketing to your certified peers. Like if there's MBE, EDGE, or VBE, or WBE certified businesses who could use your services. We found that a lot of the certified businesses want to help others, so they work together. And one other thing is, I always tell my clients is that whenever you get these certifications, it's like getting a seal of approval from the state of Ohio, because it is a rigorous process. It's not as much paperwork now as it was before, but it is basically the state of Ohio saying that your business is in good enough standing to be considered a state of Ohio business certified. Your business is a good enough business as far as your standing goes, and they approve you, and you got that seal of approval from the state of Ohio. Sorry about that. So would you be eligible for MBE or EDGE certification, or VBE or WBE? Well, let's see. So the VBE, to be eligible, you have to have one out of these four criteria. At least 51% of the business is owned by veterans or persons on active service. At least 51% of the board of directors are veterans or persons on active service. The business is certified by the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs as service disabled veteran-owned small business or a veteran-owned small business, and the owners meet the definition of a veteran, or at least 10% of the business employees are veterans or on active service. A lot of people don't know that that is one of the criteria to be VBE certified. General program eligibility for the MBE and EDGE You have to be a full-time Ohio resident, for-profit and in business for 1 year, possess requisite knowledge of the business and industry, so you know it very well, have day-to-day control and demonstrate capability and or expertise, and possession of all licenses. So you have to be able to prove that you own and operate your business, at least 51% of it. MBE eligibility. Owned and controlled by a U.S. citizen and Ohio resident who belongs to one or more of the following minority groups: African Americans or Blacks, which is all persons having origins in any of the Black racial groups of Africa; American Indian, all persons who maintain culture and have origins in a federally recognized Indian tribe as listed in the current Federal Register Notice of Indian entities recognized and eligible to receive services from the U.S. Bureau of Indian Affairs; Asians, which is all persons having origins in any of the original people of the Far East, including China, Japan, and Southeast Asia. India has been included in the definition of Asian now, and subsequent to that, Pakistan was included because the country came about as a division from India. Or be Hispanic or Latino, which is all persons of Spanish or Portuguese culture with origins in Mexico, South or Central America, or the Caribbean islands, regardless of race. EDGE eligibility. In order to be eligible for EDGE, your business has to be owned and controlled by a U.S. citizen and Ohio resident who is both socially and economically disadvantaged. The social disadvantage part could be ethnicity, gender, female gender, chronic physical or mental disability, or business owner's long-term residence in an environment isolated from the mainstream of American society. And what the last one there means is, one, you would either be in one of the HUBZone areas or in Appalachian County. There's certain areas that qualify for that. Economic disadvantage would be personal net worth of less than $750,000 at the time of application and throughout the life of the program, and fair market value of all assets is less than $4 million. In order to be certified as a WBE, you must own and control. You must be a woman who owns and controls the business, who is a U.S. citizen and has established residency in the state of Ohio or a reciprocal state, if certified pursuant to section 123.154D of the revised code. In addition, the following criteria must be met. The business must have been in business for at least 1 year prior to applying, be at least 51% women owned, and the business owner must possess requisite knowledge of the business and industry in which she is applying, have day-to-day control over the business, exercising final authority over all aspects of daily operations, including but not limited to operations, financial and business management, human resources, and policy decisions, and possess all licenses and permits required by law to perform the scope of work within classifications requested. And benefits of the WBE certification. The Ohio WBE certified program participants are eligible for contract assistance, management, and technical assistance. We kind of went over this already. So the reciprocal state certification, the ability to utilize Ohio WBE certification to apply for certification with reciprocal states during doing business in those states as a WBE certified business. So basically, you're in Ohio and you say you're in Cincinnati and you're right there next to Kentucky and Indiana. And as long as those are certified or states that that the state of Ohio approves, then you can use your certification in those states. Eligibility for open market contracts. So the certified businesses are listed in the searchable database. Management and technical assistance, access to us, which is the Minority Business Assistance Centers, and PTAC, which is the Procurement Technical Assistance Centers. And we both assist businesses with identifying federal, state, and local contracting and subcontracting opportunities. MBAC works mostly with the state, and PTAC works, I believe, mostly with the federal. I'm not positive that that's where they work mostly, but I believe it is. Access to free accounting assistance, structuring internal accounting systems, auditing management records, business plan development, technical advisory services, marketing plans, and evaluation of company operations and management processes. Access to business development organizations that facilitate training, strategic management, networking, and mentoring opportunities with major corporations. One of the great things that we offer with MBAC is we do a lot of webinars, and we put them on our website. There's 7 MBACs throughout the state of Ohio. And so we put them on our website and the webinars. So if we do a webinar on financial statements, we put it on there so you can go and access it at any time. And we do a lot of different things. We do things about Calendly and different apps. We teach you how to do those. And we also do pitch competitions and things like that too. So what happens after you submit your application? There are 3 certification options that a company can choose from based on its needs. The 2 most commonly used are the standard and fast track. In a nutshell, the EOD reviews the application and supporting documents for completeness and begins the audit process, which includes validation of the application information and ownership and control. It completes an on-site interview, and additional documentation may be requested. Right now, it's by phone, it's not on site. The EOD analyzes documentation and the information gathered during the interview and makes a determination as to approval or disapproval. And then they notify you as to their determination and what you do next. The standard certification process is average time is 60 to 90 days. Right now, it takes a little bit longer than that because of the one of the loans that are available and 2 certified businesses. So everyone's applying for certification, and also because the fact that if you're certified through the state, you are automatically certified through everyone below the state level. So, and I'm not sure if that has been put out there as advertised yet, but it's because it hasn't been passed very long, but that's the other reason. So to complete a unified application through the business gateway would be what you do first. But we strongly advise that you contact MBAC, SBDC, or PTAC for our assistance before you do that, because the second step is to submit required documents based on business entity structure. And so whenever you complete that application, they will automatically send you the checklist. However, you have 7 days to get them all of the things on that checklist. So we strongly advise that you contact either MBAC, SBDC, or PTAC. Usually when you contact us, we will take and get your documents together first. We'll help you get all your documents together, and then you submit your application. And that way you don't get denied because you don't get it done in time, because you only have 7 days. Attend an on-site interview. Additional documents may be requested at the interview. And then the State Equal Employment Opportunity Coordinator makes the certification determination. The required documents. For all MBE and EDGE applicants, proof of U.S. citizenship, proof of Ohio residency. If you're applying for MBE, proof of ethnicity. If you're applying for WBE, it'd be proof of gender. EDGE, you would have to prove that you're socially and economically disadvantaged group. if you're applying for the VBE, it'd be proof of veteran status. All of those all of the certifications require that you submit your resume and your registered trade name or fictitious name from the Secretary of State and your federal and state tax returns. The fast track certification process is available through us, the Minority Business Assistance Centers, when an applicant desires to submit a bid or proposal in response to a procurement solicitation and certification is a requirement to be responsive, or has a pending Minority Business Development Division financing or bonding application where the certification is a requirement. So if you have a contract and they have already told you you could have that you are going to get that contract, but you have to be MBE certified first, then that's when you would get the fast track. The fast track certification process, the average certification time is usually 3 to 5 days. Right now, the average certification time is about two to 3 weeks, I think, maybe 2 weeks. You complete the unified application like you do with the regular certification process. They provide the checklist. You submit the required documents based on the business entity structure. And then you, the certification officer has an interview with you right now by phone. They can request more documentation if they like, and then they let you know if you get certified or not. This process is only done through MBAC. So you don't want to complete that application until you contact us if this is the case for you. If certified by one of the entities below, so this here is our, it says expedited certification process because this is the, if you are certified with one of these entities below, then you can get certified with the state of Ohio by only providing a few documents and showing that you're certified. Like say you're certified with the city of Cincinnati, then you can get certified through the state of Ohio, and it's for however long your certification is with the city of Cincinnati, which is going to be no more than 2 years. However, after that certification period ends, you have to apply for your MBE certification as if you were never certified. So basically, that's something you need to keep in mind. Ways that we can help. We can help you with this process in by helping you gather the documents. We can explain the checklist to you. I say that I've held a few of my clients' hands and walked them through the whole process before. It was 32 documents, and now it's down to, I think, 15 documents. So now is definitely the time to get certified. So the bonus part, although not part of this training, the following information about identifying procurement opportunities, best practices for approaching agency procurement staff, and important important registration steps can prove helpful both before and after certification. So how to utilize the agency projection plans. Once you're certified, you have that certification. That does not mean that people are going to come knocking on your door. It is just a tool that you use in order to get to those contracts and to sell to the state. So 2 commonly used sites to identify state procurement opportunities are the DAS Office of Procurement Services and the DAS Equal Opportunity Division. For construction companies, also be aware of the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission and the Ohio Department of Transportation. The Facility Construction Commission does a lot of the schools and the colleges, and then the Ohio Department of Transportation obviously does the highways. And the Ohio Department of Transportation has a lot of great resources, and I've not worked much with the Ohio Facility Construction Commission, but I do know that the ODOT they have a lot of great resources, and if you go to their website and you go through it, you'll see that there's many tools you can use there too. The Office of Procurement Services. So you go here, you register with Office of Shared Services to receive bid notifications. You review current contracts or bid opportunities. You could also go to our website, which is www.mbaccincy.com, and find current contracts and bid opportunities there too. The Facilities Construction Commission, you would go there and sign up for RFQ and or construction bidding email notifications. You can also receive notices of pre-bid meetings there too. The Ohio Department of Transportation, you'll find upcoming projects, pre-bid meetings, bidding documents, and more. Like I said, they have a lot of tools there. It's definitely, when you're certified, you definitely want to check out their site. They also have pre-bid questions you may have. They have some answers to those, upcoming ITBs, upcoming RFPs and RFIs, and more. ITBs is invitations to bid, RFPs is requests for proposals, and RFIs is requests for information. The Equal Opportunity Division. So here you can review the unspecs codes, which are our procurement codes for the MBEs, verify scope of work and contact information, and the annual projection plans, which show you what each of the cabinets, boards, and agencies are, how they're budgeting and how much they're putting toward MBE and EDGE services, where they're putting it, and the information is there to who you contact. So the MBE EDGE procurement officer for, let's say, Department of Transportation, you would find that there. Now what? So the OBM account code Crosswalk this will allow you to identify what account code your unspecs matches to, or rather how an agency might code their purchase in that commodity. So when an agency goes to purchase items, they don't think in terms of, I mean, when they're not searching for, let's say, rebar, someone that lays rebar, or someone, they're not searching for a trucking company, they're searching for a code. So you want to make sure that, which I'm pretty sure on here it says about the capability statement, that your capability statement has your codes on it.
We do have a question in the chat.
Okay.
Once certified, how long does the certification last?
2 years. And actually, after, I think it's 3 months before your certification expires, they will contact you, letting you know by email. Make sure you keep your email up to date. Make sure you keep your phone number up to date. Those are so important, because not only for the certification reason, but also because if they want to contact you for like they want you to bid on something, or they have it or they have a direct purchase they want to make through you, because not all of their purchases are done through bids and contracts. They have a lot of direct purchases they make, and that's one of the reasons that you want to make sure your information's kept up to date. But back to the recertification, I've had many clients who did not keep their email up to date, and that's why they didn't get recertified. They were like, well, I never knew. Well, they contacted the email address they had, but that wasn't the email address you used anymore, and you didn't bother to keep it up to date. So I guess it's how important is this tool to you, is what it comes down to. So make sure you keep that information up to date if you're going to use it as one of your major tools for your business.
All right, thank you.
This is an example of like the like I was saying a while ago, how the trucking company, they don't look them up by a trucking company. They're going to look up the code. So the court reporter, you put it in and it's going to bring up the code for a court reporter. And it's going to tell you the account code is 510050. And it's going to be, the title would be Administrative and Management Services. The commodity code over here is the one not the number that they're going to be, that's just the commodity code, but the 6-digit code is the code that is the UNSPC code. And then, so court reporting services could be under Administrative and Management Services. It could also be under Legal Services and available for bid, or state plan training. So it's going to list the different codes for you, so that you get all of the codes you need and you have them on your, whenever you get certified, they will assign codes to you. And these are codes you want to make sure that you get, if you're a court reporter, of course. So using the projection plan analysis, once you have the account codes, you want to see which agencies plan to spend in those areas. So you want to review the projection plan analysis to identify those opportunities. So whenever you go into the procurement analysis, you want to go to the search and search by your identified account codes that you found whenever you looked up the court reporter.
Marlene, I just want to say real quick, Tiffany Gibson, your camera is on. I don't know if you're aware of that. If you could turn it off, please. Thank you.
So on this, like the blue tabs are for MBEs, and the orange tabs are for EDGE or VBE opportunities, and the green tabs have combined data for the categories of MBE and open market. And as you can see down here, it shows you the agency contacts are the blue tabs, and are for the MBEs, and the orange tabs obviously going to be for the EDGE agency contacts. And the green one would be, or the EDGE and VBE. It's a little bit hard to read, and we help with that too. So with the court reporter example, these would be the agencies you would want to focus your efforts on for outreach related to MBE set aside, would be the agencies here. And this shows you how much the projected purchases are, and if they are included a set aside purchase, or whether, so if you're an MBE, you would, the set aside would apply for the MBE. The agency procurement contacts, like I said, whenever you get certified, you can go in and find out who the agency procurement contacts are through the projection plan analysis. And that's who you're going to call. So they lead with services, how business can help the agency meet their agency mission. And then coincidentally happen to be a certified business who can help agency meet their procurement goals. One example I use is, so you want to go in and you want to get who your contact person is, and then you're going to contact all of those different agencies that was back there. Oops, sorry. Disregard that for a minute. Just listen to me. And you want to, whenever you get the contact, you're going to contact them by email, send them your capability statement, then follow up with a phone call, introduce yourself, let them know that you are MBE, your WBE, your EDGE, you could be all three, a VBE, you could be all four, certified, whichever certifications you have, and let them know that you're looking for opportunities, and they can give you some information too. And some of them might be looking for someone who, because maybe it's the end of the year and they haven't met their requirement for MBE yet, and you just happen to call at the right time. And they never thought of whatever it is you do. Let's say you do, that you have a car wash and you're contacting the safety department. I think it's the safety for the transportation, so that's the highway patrol, right? So you have a car wash and you're calling them because you have a car wash, or you have a I think a better example might be a wrecker service, and you want to let them know that you're certified and they need to meet their requirement. They never thought of someone who was certified with a wrecker. They never thought of someone who had a wrecker company, to fill that slot. So maybe they will need to use you for your services, and you would get maybe they could do a contract with you, and if they have one available, or they could do a direct purchase through you. Those are just a few examples, and examples that I could think of. I'm sure there's many others out there. Final thoughts: register with the Office of Budget and Management's Office of Shared Services. Doing so adds you to the state's accounting system, and that way, whenever you are awarded a bid, it is that much easier for you to get paid. Very important. Register with the supplier.ohio.gov. Very important. Register for Office of Procurement Services' new Ohio Buys e-procurement system and online shopping platform for state users to purchase goods and services provided by supplier partners. Doing so will position your company to bid on quick quote opportunities direct from the initial early adopting agencies. And that is through Ohio Buys. There's always things you can learn, and never think you know everything about these, about the procurement process, because I know I learn every day. I definitely learn every day. It's very interesting though. I find it very interesting. It's a little bit confusing sometimes, but once you catch on, and get things figured out, then your business could scale from it. In anticipation of contract bid award, consider reviewing affirmative action guidelines and having the following certificates already in place. Goods and services would be affirmative action program verification. And the construction industry, you would want your certificate of compliance.
We do have another question. And that is, what's the goal for Ohio for percentage of business with woman-owned businesses?
There is not a goal for women-owned businesses at this time. It's the reciprocal state is the advantage of that. and also just being a WBE and approved by the state of Ohio speaks volumes for your business.
And the second part was, is it 5% for the federal government? And the answer to that is yes. And Nicole Brock is asking, could someone place the link in the chat? Which link? The affirmative action verification link or the COC supplier and DAS?
No, you said federal, didn't you? Okay, I'm sorry. I thought they were talking
No,
about.
no, there was two part. No, I just
Okay.
answered the second part. So I don't, the DAS supplier link. Is it possible to put that in the chat? I'm not sure, Nicole, which one. Marlene, do you know which one she's referring to?
There's a lot of links back through there.
Okay, Ohio.supplier. Can we go back a couple slides and see if we see it?
Debbie, this one right here.
I can't see it. Oh, that's probably, I think that's it. Is that it? Yes. Yeah, it's just supplier.ohio.gov. Oh, you got it. Oh, look at that. That was fast. Thank you.
Here's the other one.
And this presentation will be available in addition to the recording on the Ohio Business Matchmaker website in about a week. So you will have access to those links that way as well.
And here is our information this is for the state. And I think Deborah's information. This is my boss's PowerPoint, not mine. So I can drop my information in the chat, and her information is right here. How do I get just this one up there?
Just you can hit full screen. Where is that? At the bottom right. There's a little, just go past the 60, that almost past the 64% to the left. That one. Nope. Yes. You should be able to click on that and it'll go.
There we go. Yeah,
there you go. Okay. Now we're cooking with gas.
Right. So this is my boss's information, and mine is the same email except for it's Marlene, MARLENE. I'll drop that in the chat.
And are there any other questions for Marlene today? And I just want to give a sincere thank you for your time today. Those of you that are on the training, we asked Marlene about 2 hours before the presentation because we had our presenter was ill and could not participate today. So thank you so much. And I just heard Shonda Harris's voice, so I'm going to turn it over to her. Thank you, Marlene.
You're welcome.
No, I just want to echo. I just want to echo. Thank you so much for stepping in at the very last hour and helping out. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Okay. Well, I don't see any additional questions coming through the chat, so we will switch gears a little bit early, I believe, if that's okay, Shonda, and get started on the federal government certifications.
Okay. Well, I can.
Oh, Marlene, did you want to say something?
Okay.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to let you know that whenever I was giving the presentation, I was talking about the current loans that were available. And I always like to share that kind of information. So I was going to just drop in the chat the links for the minority the Ohio microloan program, which is for MBEs and WBEs, and then the women business enterprise loan program. And I'll put both of the links for those in the chat.
Thank you, because I remember you
Awesome.
mentioning that these are great loan programs, and I meant to ask
They-
you, okay, which ones are they? So you're doing that. That's great.
Yeah, they're excellent. They're low, like 1 and 3% interest. They don't do like, they're not like, if you have bad credit, that's not going to be like going to stop you by itself. Not saying, it's not something that it's going to be like, if you go to a bank and you don't have like at least I don't know what, a 600 score, 650, then you're not going to get a loan. That's not going to stop you by itself. They do ask for a lot of information, but it's well worth it. The micro loan is up to 45,000, and the women business enterprise loan is up to 500,000.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
And let me see if I can. And I'm glad that you mentioned that, Marlene. And actually, I believe next week we will be having somebody from the state who will be talking about those programs, Ms. Chandretta Boykin. So if you are interested,
Awesome.
in
Sorry, she's awesome. She is. She will do a great job. She's the one behind it. She's got that spirit with it too.
Oh, okay.
Oh, she's phenomenal. Sorry, I won't interrupt anymore.
No, you can interrupt. You were the highlight. You were the savior of our day. So thank you. Those are in the chat. So again, what a great way to end. I didn't get a chance to hear your presentation, just the ending part. But again, thank you so much for mentioning those. And if you are interested in taking advantage of those programs with the state, you're doing business with the state, getting those certifications, again, this is being recorded. And as Jill mentioned, it will be on the Matchmaker site and the Ohio University PTAC site, as well as the slides. And then next week, you can learn about the different access to capital programs that the state has. I know that one of those programs is actually new, and try to provide a lot of great opportunities for small businesses. So with that said, we are starting a little early, but that is okay. Now we've heard from the state as far as the certifications and what you need to do business with the state agency. Now we are going to transition to federal government. And good afternoon, everybody. My name is Shonda Harris. I feel like I just was presenting. We had a webinar this morning. So again, my name is Shonda Harris. I'm a business opportunity specialist with the Columbus District Office of the SBA. I work with Jill Nagy Reynolds, and we will be co-presenting this afternoon. And this webinar is a part of the pre-matchmaker webinar series. So we're grateful that you've joined us, and you will get a chance, if you haven't done business with the federal government, if you're looking to do business with the federal government, small business certifications are tools that can perhaps assist you as a small business. So that's our contact information. Here's just a little agenda. Before we jump into the actual certifications, just want to kind of lay some foundation and a backdrop as to why you would want to sell to the federal government, how and what the federal government buys, just the size standards, and actually what the criteria and what qualifies you as a small business, just so that you have an understanding of that. Then the actual certification process for a small business. We do get some questions about that, so we'll clarify that. And then we'll actually go into the small business programs, the 8A certification, HUBZone, woman-owned. We'll touch base just briefly about veteran-owned and service-disabled veteran. And we'll answer questions as we go along. Okay, so just real briefly, why would you want to sell to the federal government? The United States federal government is probably the largest procurer of goods and services, buying over about $6 billion a year. And just about anything you can think of, the federal government is going to buy. Goods, services, construction, IT, marketing services, even in some instances, food, sustenance, even maybe clothing, something for our troops, but just about anything you can think of, they're going to need to purchase it. So with them buying such a large amount of goods and services, they are required to do a certain amount or a certain purchase of their business, of their spend with small businesses. And as a small business, this can give you an opportunity to diversify your customer base, expand into new markets. We just had a wonderful opportunity to hear from Arlene. If you're doing business with a state agency and you may have state certifications and MBE Edge, the woman-owned certification or the veteran, and you're looking to expand, this may be a great opportunity for you to do that and doing business with the federal government. Also, just increasing your sales revenue and growing your business. All right, how the federal government buys. So as I mentioned, the federal government is required to do a certain portion of its purchasing, of its spend with small businesses. And how they do that, contracts are actually set aside for small business groups to bid on. And so how it's broken down, again, the federal certifications, which we'll go over shortly, are not guarantees for you as a small business to get a contract, but they're actually tools or keys that can help you as a small business in certain specific categories, maybe to open the door, to gain entrance, to gain a foothold into the federal market, and to begin to do business with federal agencies. So as far as the dollar threshold, as far as products, the small and micro purchase level, anything between 0 to 10,000, the federal agencies will purchase this at a micro purchase level, and agencies could have purchase card holders that may be able to purchase those smaller purchase amounts. With services, with contracts, and with construction, could be in the $3,500 range. With service contracts, just regular construction. Now for the actual small business set aside categories, so for your 8A, your woman-owned, your HUBZone, your service disabled, or just you as a small business, something called the Simplified Acquisition Threshold, or SAT. So any contract between the $10,000, 10K, and 250K, that's what's called the Simplified Acquisition Threshold. So if an agency has a purchase within that dollar amount, they do need to look to see if there are small businesses in those categories where they can set contracts aside for these small businesses to bid on. So anything above the 250,000 up to 7.5 million is what's considered a large dollar purchase, and that's for commercial items. Okay, so how the federal government buys. Now, what do they buy? Again, just about anything. So you see the different categories: supplies and equipment, about 36%, services, engineering, construction, health, research and development, management, anything you can think of, sales, marketing, all of those type of services. So about 35%, agriculture related, communications, finance, about 19%, construction. So there is a lot of building, it's about 7%, and then 3% with other. So now we'll jump into what criteria actually makes you a small business and how the certification works. So at the federal government level, how the federal government determines if you're small, there's something called size standards. And with the size standards, the SBA actually has a chart, and you can Google SBA size standards chart. And for every single industry, the SBA doesn't look at your industry and say, okay, are you in the healthcare industry? Do you have a construction business? Do you have an IT business? Are you sales and marketing? For each and every industry, there's something called a NAICS code, North American Industry Classification Code. And that is how the essentially the federal government will determine whether or not you are small. And I'll go into a little bit more details with that in the next couple slides. So the SBA will look at the size standards chart for each and every industry to determine if you're small. Also, we will look at your business type. So are you a sole proprietor? Do you have an LLC? How is your business legally set up? Also, you do have to be located in the United States. And then we'll go over some of these as far as the average, the number of employees that you may have, or the dollar amount. We'll kind of go over that in the next couple of slides. So if you are a company, or if you're located, your primary business is located outside of the United States, then you won't be qualified as a small business. And then also, and this is important because sometimes we see a lot of companies that want to set up as a nonprofit or not-for-profit. So the federal government does look at for-profit entities as small business to qualify as a small business. All right, so with the size standards charts and the next codes. So the size standards chart essentially defines the largest size that a small business can be in order to still be small and participate in government contracting. And to receive those set asides, as I mentioned, agencies have to set aside contracts between a certain dollar amount threshold. So that size standards chart will essentially lay out what is the largest size. For instance, your construction industries may be a 356, maybe NAICS code, and maybe the largest size for construction related may be 36.5 million. For some of our IT related industries in the 4.1 NAICS codes, it could be 30.5 million as far as the largest size that a small business can be. And essentially, size standards vary in industry, and it's based on either the number of employees that a small business has, or the gross receipts, or the annual dollar amount that that business does for the year. So when you look at the size standards chart in the NAICS codes, essentially, if it's a service industry, engineering, construction, IT, marketing, et cetera, then the size standards will be determined by its revenue. So the dollar amount of what that company made over a 5-year span will determine if that company is small. Now, if a company is a manufacturing company or manufacturing related, it will be based on the number of employees. So it could be a 500, 1,000, 1,200. So again, that size standards chart will have, for the service industries, the dollar amount listed of what's the maximum cap for a company to be considered small. And if it's manufacturing or manufacturing related, it will list the number of employees. So why that's important, as you are looking to do business with the federal government, sometimes you may not fit into any of the other categories. You may not be woman-owned, you may not be a veteran, you may not be located in a HUB zone, you may not be economically and socially disadvantaged and qualify for 8A, and your company may just be small. So if your company is small, there really essentially is no certification process for that. What you essentially would have to do is register in SAM. So SAM is the System for Award Management. If some of you were on our webinar earlier this morning, you got some information about that. But essentially, SAM is the portal, the vendor portal, where all federal vendors must be registered. So once you register in SAM, you get your UEI, unique identifier. You're going to have to disclose information about your business. And some of that information is, okay, how much did you make last year? What were your gross receipts? How many employees do you have? So what the federal government will do is we'll look on average over the last 5 years, what was the average of your gross receipts over that 5 years. And again, if you're in one of those service related industries and you are under the cap for your industry, that is what will determine if you're small. If you're in a manufacturing or manufacturing related industry and you're underneath the cap for your employees, that will be the determining factor whether or not you're small. Once you input that information in SAM, that's essentially it. There is no process. You don't have to submit any other documentation. Of course, you do have to go through SAM and input additional information, your NAICS codes, the information about your company. But essentially, once you enter in your gross receipts and the number of your employees, that's essentially it. And that is what kind of sets the basis for you being a small business and that small business certification. We do get questions on that. Are there any questions on that so far? Okay.
I don't
So how
see
can you
questions. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Jill. So essentially, if you meet the criteria for small business, then how can you do business with the federal government? So glad you asked. So again, if you're a small business, then there is full and open competition, but with small businesses, it kind of narrows that competition so that you're not competing against everyone. And if you are able to qualify for certifications, then sometimes contracts are set aside for the socioeconomic groups for those federal certifications. And sometimes in some instances, contracts are given as sole source contracts or direct awards. So here are the certifications that we'll go through, starting with the 8A, HUBZone, woman-owned, and just want to throw out at the federal level, there is the veteran-owned and service-disabled veteran-owned certifications. Currently, those certifications that process is being handled by the Department of the Veterans Administration. You can actually go to, I think it's, I forget the name of that process. It's been veteran verification. So if you just Google the VA Veterans Verification process, then you can essentially go to the VA's website and go through that certification process for veteran-owned. You can also work with your PTACs. PTACs are certified, their business advisors, their business certified business advisors are qualified and they are verified to actually walk you through the steps and assist you with the certification. Now, it is currently being handled by the VA, but in January 2023, it's slated to transition to the SBA so that SBA will have oversight of that certification. And then essentially all of the small business programs, all of the federal certifications will be housed and handled and have oversight by the SBA. So essentially, we will not talk about the veteran-owned certification today, but all the other ones we will. All right, so here is a layout again with the federal certifications. They are incentives for you as a small business to do business at the federal level and to gain into the federal market. And again, they are just tools. So if you do qualify and you meet the criteria, then essentially you can apply for these certifications and then use them to go after set aside contracts. So I believe on the previous certification, someone was asking about woman-owned. So at the federal level, essentially, I said the federal government is mandated to do business with small businesses. They're mandated to do at least 23% of its spend, of its procurement with small businesses. And here's kind of a breakout of that. Out of that 23%, at least 5% of what federal agencies are spending should be with woman-owned small businesses, WOSB small businesses. And that is the goal that agencies have. All of these are goals. So with small disadvantaged businesses, and when I mean disadvantaged, those businesses that are both economically and socially disadvantaged at the federal level, the certification is called 8A. And those that go after the 8A certification are both economically and socially disadvantaged. So at least 5% agencies should be spending with small disadvantaged businesses or 8A. The goal for HUBZone businesses is 3%, as well as for service disabled, veteran owned is also 3%. I believe with service disabled, veteran owned, the VA, if you're doing business with VA, that percentage, their goal is much higher because they do give veterans preference because it is the Department of Veterans Administration. So, all right, let's get into the first certification. What is the 8A Business Development Program? Essentially, it is just a tool that will allow small businesses to gain access into the federal market. It is just for 9 years, and it is that 9 years is broken into 2 stages. I believe the next slide will go over that. And essentially, the purpose of the 8A program, essentially, mainly with all of the small business programs, but with the 8A program is really essentially for business development, for small businesses to get a chance to grow their capacity, to grow their core competencies, and to essentially grow their business, grow their sales, hopefully grow their business, hopefully into different areas, maybe different markets, different core competencies, so that they're able to participate at the federal market. Now, with that, just because someone may go after the 8A certification and essentially they may get the certification, does not guarantee that as a small business, they're entitled to or they're guaranteed to win any federal contracts, especially set-aside contracts. And that's with any of the certifications. It's not a guarantee once you have it. You do have to put in the work and you do have to do the due diligence to go after contracts. So with that, the 8A program is 9 years and it's broken up into 2 stages. So essentially, if a company is both economically and socially disadvantaged, we'll go over those criteria in the next slides. Once you go after the certification and you are approved, that certification process typically may take about 90 days from the date someone may apply. You do apply on certify.sba.gov, and there's essentially a portal where you have to upload various documentation as it relates to your company owners and your company, the contracts that you've received. But essentially, once you go through the application process, and it goes through about 4 approval steps, if that application is deemed approved, then what happens is that your certification actually starts once that application is approved. The date of the approval is when the 8A program, your 8A certification starts. So from that time, all the way up through year 1 through years 4, that's what's considered the developmental stage. And then years 5 through 9 is what's considered the transitional stage. And then, of course, in years 9, that's when companies actually exit the program and they do graduate. I will go over the benefits of that first 4 years of being in the program in the next slide, because there are some benefits during that first 4 years of the program that companies can essentially take advantage of. So as far as what are the criteria, as far as the ownership, so if a company is economically and socially disadvantaged, then the owner or owners must be 51% owned and controlled by a US citizen. And then that owner, that essentially what is considered the disadvantaged owner, must be both economically and socially disadvantaged. And in addition to being economically and socially disadvantaged, and I'll go over both of those criteria in the next couple slides in a little more detail. In addition to being economically and socially disadvantaged, being a US citizen, the owner or owners, it could be more than one. Some companies may have 2 owners, they could have 3 owners, but essentially the individual that has both economic and social disadvantage status and all of the owners have to have good character. Essentially, the company needs to be in business at least 2 years. The federal government wants to see, are you able to sustain? Are you able to go after contracts? Have you won any contracts? And there is a caveat with that 2 years. You can apply for the 8A program and maybe only you've been in business for 1 year. And there is, you can apply for a waiver if you've only been in business for 1 year. But I strongly recommend, believe Jill would probably echo this. We do recommend that you may want to wait those 2 years to make sure that you have a good understanding about how federal government contracting works and also the 8A program, how it works. Because that 9 years, believe it or not, it sounds like a long time, but it really does go by pretty quickly. And if you don't have a really good understanding about how the program works, how federal government contracting works, we have seen individuals get into the program and really spend a lot of that 9 years, especially the first 4 or 5 years, really gaining an understanding and maybe not really taking advantage of that time. And then by the time they're halfway through, even though they may get contracts, that first or 4 or 5 years where they learned about the program, you're unable to gain that back. So we really just stress the importance of really being procurement ready, having a great understanding about the program and how federal government works for your industry, and also seeing if there are any 8A contracts in your industry before you apply to the program.
We have a question, Shonda.
Yes.
Okay, so hang on. The 8A application asks if I'm a broker. As a freight broker, I selected yes and was not able to go further in the application process. However, I sent an email to the 8A help desk and was advised that I should answer no because the question does not apply to me. I don't understand this. Can you elaborate?
Great question. All right. So essentially, if you are a broker, so essentially what that means is typically you are operating a company, and maybe if there was a contract, I'm just going to throw this up hypothetically. Let's just say there was a contract that an agency were looking for papers, pens, and ink. Let's just say office supplies. A federal agency had a contract out for office supplies. So if you were a broker, that means that you're able to maybe purchase the office supplies, but you don't do it directly. You may purchase the office supplies from another company. And once you get those office supplies, then you resell it to the government. And so essentially at the federal level, the federal government wants to make sure that as a small business, you are the small business that's providing that good, that's providing the service, that's doing the work. And so if you're a broker and you're getting that service from another company, and then maybe you're pricing, you're putting in an uptick on it, and you're getting, a certain percentage from that, then the federal government doesn't look at you as that direct company that they'll be doing business with. And so that's something that they shun away from, and they're not going to allow you to get the certification. And that's why they essentially, you weren't allowed to go after. And I think when you emailed, they said, you must have explained, and I don't know exactly what you do, but maybe in your explanation may have provided that you may do your good, you may provide your good or your service. There's more information.
Yeah, I think and I thank you, Shonda. I just wanted to add, like, as a freight broker,
Oh, a freight.
yes, they arranges transportation for freight.
Okay.
So my understanding then would be you find vehicles to transport goods and services. And
Thank you.
Okay, that one's kind of a new one.
Yeah, and that's a little tricky. And I'm sure maybe with loads and whatnot, maybe picking up loads, that is a little different. And I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last
No,
part.
that's okay. I would, if you wouldn't mind emailing one of us, we can look a little bit farther into it. And then the other thing is, are you familiar with federal government procurement? because you don't want to dive into 8A, as Shonda said, right away. Because it's a one-time deal. You have the 9 years to participate, and then that's it. So you'll see our contact information at the end
Yes.
of the presentation.
Um,
Yeah, freight broker, that's the first time I've seen that one.
I have two, I'm trying to think of, yeah, maybe in doing business with ODOT, but not at the federal level. Great question. But I'm actually glad that you brought that up, because before you, even though you may meet the criteria, and I'm going over the criteria, you may want to reach out again to Jill or myself just to see for your specific industry. And a lot of times with the 8A certification, companies, there may not be contracts in your specific industry or what you do. Even though the federal government may buy it, your good or service, there may not be 8A contracts in that specific industry. So that's another important factor that you do want to determine before you spend a lot of time looking at the certification, you know, submitting all your documentation. Because if there aren't any contracts in that industry, not to say you couldn't win contracts in something else, but you do want to make sure that you are, you have a good understanding and that there are 8A contracts within your NAICS code or NAICS codes that you may have under other core competencies.
We got another
Secondary and
comment.
tertiary. Yes.
I was terrified to falsify my application based on the direction I received from the 8A help desk. I understand, but you know, SBA would just say, no, that's not, you know, it's not the IRS. I mean, they would just say, I'm sorry, but you're not qualified.
And it's not, yeah, and it's not to scare you, but they just want to make sure that you are actually, in essence, doing the work. They don't want you to be a pass-through to where you have this company set up, but it's essentially a shell, and then you're passing goods and services through your company, but you're not actually providing the service. You're not actually doing the work. So it's not to scare you, but they do want to make sure that you're, in essence, a real company, if that makes sense. But if you talk to one of us, we can help you with that. And they're not to scare you, but they're just to make sure that you are who you are and you're real and you do what, you know, you say that you do, especially under your NAICS code. So hopefully that helps. So with that,
oh, well, I'm sorry, Shonda. One more thing. I keep interrupting you. I'm going to stop. So
no, that's okay. That's why we're here.
By the way, tell Shonda it's Reiko again with all the questions.
Oh. Reiko, she was on the, well, thank you for Reiko for those. She was on the webinar earlier this morning on the changes to SAM. So Reiko had a lot of questions. That means you're eager to learn about federal government contracting, and you want to do it the right way. So I don't look at it as a negative thing, but hopefully all the things that you're getting today, if you do have a lot of questions, a great way for you to sign up and work with your PTAC counselor, because this can be overwhelming. There's a lot of information. Sometimes it gets a little confusing. Sometimes, you know, you may be a little scared, like, I don't want to do anything wrong. I don't want to answer anything wrong in SAM. But really, that's why we're here. That's why the PTAC's here, to really essentially guide you to make sure that you're doing the process right so that you don't get overwhelmed. So thank you for that. Any other questions real quick, Jill? Okay.
I walked away. I'm back.
Do you see how we work? We work well together. Thanks, Jill.
I heard you say Jill.
You're like,
says, I absolutely am. I appreciate all of these webinars. Just scheduled my PTAC meeting. All right, per your
there we go.
Earlier.
There awesome. We go. So if you haven't, like Reiko, signed up to join and do business with PTAC as a client, you need to do so today. Shameless plug for PTAC. We used to be PTAC clients. All right, getting back to 8A. So essentially, great question. So also one of the requirements, the agency wants to make sure that you have the ability to be successful and to perform on federal government contracts. Now, does that mean that you already had to have had federal government past performance? No, you don't necessarily had to have done business with a federal agency as a prime. That means that you had a direct award with an agency or as a sub, but they do want to make sure that you do have a good understanding about contracts work, how contracting works, that you had clients, that you've had customers, that you generated sales. So that's what they mean for potential for success. They will ask for contracts, but again, they don't have to be federal government. Really important, you can't have participated in the program previously. So again, this is just a one and done. You can only participate in the program as a small business and then the owner of a small business. So if you own Smith and Company today, you get into the 8A program, you go through the 9 years, and then let's just say you graduate, you exit out of the program. 5 years down the road, you decide to sell Smith and Company, and then you want to buy the soapbox company. And then the soapbox company, you want to go through the 8A program as the owner of the soapbox company. You can't do that. Again, you can only do it one time as a company and then one time as an owner. Also, you do have to be small. We talked about the SBA size standards. So for your NAICS code, you do have to be small under your NAICS code as a criteria. All right, I'm glad we started early. So as far as you being economically and socially disadvantaged, you have to have a personal net worth that's less than $750,000. You have to maintain that all throughout the program, even while you're applying. And then that personal net worth doesn't include equity in your business or in your home or any investments as it relates to 401k. All right, I'm gonna try to quickly make up some time. Social disadvantage. You're automatically presumed socially disadvantaged if you're a African American, Asian American, Native American. So if you're in one of these groups, you automatically qualify. That automatically qualifies as your social disadvantage criteria. If you are not in one of these groups, socioeconomic groups, then you still potentially could apply to the program. And in order to determine your social disadvantage, the agency will ask you to put together a narrative in order to determine what's called the preponderance of the evidence. What does that mean? So as the individual that's, if you are trying to determine if you've been socially disadvantaged, the agency will ask, okay, have you been discriminated? Have you been subjugated to some type of prejudice? Or have you been subjugated to some type of bias as it relates to education, employment, access to capital, some type of access to within your industry opportunities? If so, that may qualify as your social disadvantage component or criteria. And what you would have to do is select one of those factors and, in essence, write a narrative. And you would have to be specific as to if you've encountered any type of discrimination or biased treatment. You would have to give examples of it, include dates and names. It has to happen in the United States. It should have happened in the United States. And what the agency considers to be chronic and non-fleeting and substantial. And we do not look at these applications, even though Jill and I work directly with 8A companies. We work with them once they get approved into the program. But if you are trying to prove that you've been disadvantaged in any way, you don't fit in one of those categories, you write your narrative for the preponderance of the evidence. You have to submit it with your application, and there are actually attorneys at SBA headquarters that will look over that to determine if your narrative does qualify. And if you need more details about more examples or just a little more explanation, you can look at 13 CFR 124-103, who is socially disadvantaged. The CFR are essentially the rules and regulations that govern government contracting, federal government contracting, and specifically 13 CFR 124 is designated for the 8A program. So if you need more information, you can look that up. All right. So essentially, if you remember, I said the 8A program is a 9-year program. It's broken down into 2 parts. The first 4 years, which is considered the developmental stage. And what makes that really important and why we really harp on really doing your due diligence, having an understanding about federal government contracting and the 8A program, because for that first 4 years, you essentially can get an unlimited amount of what's called sole source contracts. What are those? Where an agency, if you market to an agency and that agency is really, they really feel that you have the ability to provide whatever good or service they're looking for, whatever project, then they can do a direct award to your company. They don't have to post that anywhere. In that sole source contract for services, anything between up to 4.5 million is under the sole source threshold for services, and anything up to 7.5 million in manufacturing. Those are what's called sole source contracts. And again, agencies don't have to post them. So if it's set aside for 8A within those dollar thresholds for services or manufacturing, an agency can do a direct award with your company without it having to be competed. So that is definitely a benefit. And then your company during those first 4 years can essentially get an unlimited amount of 8A contracts. So in addition to sole source contracts, there's also competitive contracts. With those, anything above 4.5 million for services, above 7.5 million for manufacturing, it's at the competitive level. And what that means is agencies do have to post contracts that are competitive. And then essentially 8A companies that are within whatever NAICS code they're going after, you have to compete. You have to compete with your competition. So it is a little more stringent. It is a little more difficult for those competitive contracts. But with sole source, it may be a little easier for you to market yourself to an agency. Now, what makes the sole source contracts different for the 8A program as opposed to WOSB or HUBZone, that means that a contracting officer, if they're looking to award a contract for you with the 8A program, they do not have to do any justification for that award. They can just, once you market it and then they determine that, hey, you're the best fit, you're the best 8A, they feel that can meet what they need for this specific project. They don't have to do justification and do a write-up as to why they want to choose you opposed to another 8A company. They can just do a sole source direct award. So that's a beautiful thing. Now during, I won't go into that. Another benefit of being in the 8A program, in addition to getting sole source contracts, is you have the ability to take advantage of the SBA Mentor Protege program. Now, you don't have to just be in the 8A program to take advantage of this. You can be a small business, you can be HUBZone, woman-owned, veteran-owned to take advantage of it. But as an 8A, a lot of times we find that companies may not have past performance. They may not know how to do business with a federal government agency. And so they may want to look for a mentor. Now, we do not find mentors for you. It is up to the firm to actually find a mentor. But once you do that, there's actually a process, and it is on the SBA's website that you can go through to apply to become an official protege and for a company to be a mentor. And that mentor-protege relationship is a business development relationship. Essentially, a mentor is going to assist, is going to guide you as a protege in about 4 or 5 areas as it relates to contracting, as it relates to putting together proposals, as it relates to, I think, one of the criteria, if you're looking for cash infusion up to a certain amount for your company, for that type of assistance from a mentor, you can do it, and you can do it in an approved mentor-protege relationship. But again, it's just business development. That is not a a contract vehicle. A mentor-protege relationship is not a contract vehicle. Now, as a protege, you can only be a protege 2 times all throughout the lifetime of your company. So if you're looking to get into a mentor-protege relationship, you do want to take your time and look for your mentors and do it in a strategic way. You can talk to myself or Gio if you're interested in doing that, and just have a strategy around that, because again, you can only be a protege for 2 times. And that process, again, is found on the SBA's website as far as going through that, and you do have to get it approved. Essentially, you apply for it, and there's actually an agreement that you come to with your mentor, and you sign off on it. The mentor agrees to provide whatever type of guidance or assistance as it relates to business development. And then there's a schedule, and then you as a protege agree to it, you sign off on it, and you submit your documents, and then the SBA has to approve that. So in addition to the SBA Mentor Protege program, there is 7J training that is available to 8A programs, also for woman-owned, veteran-owned, if you're economically, socially disadvantaged and in the HUBZone, any HUBZone area, that 7J training is available for free if you meet the criteria as one of those small businesses. And essentially that training, anything as it relates to government contracting 101, how to market to the federal government, how to put together a proposal. They do have just general federal government contracting training, as well as specific training for 8As. So that training is available to assist you. And then also you can enter into a joint venture relationship. So a lot of times if you're in a mentor-protege relationship, again, that's just for business development. And essentially, if you are looking for a mentor to assist you in doing business with a federal agency to help you learn, typically, once you're in that relationship, you can enter into a joint venture relationship. And that means that 2 companies come together to form a new company, a new entity. And the beauty of a joint venture is that the 2 companies that are coming together, even though it's forming a new company, essentially it's like a marriage. That marriage or that new company, even though it has a new name, it has this new identity, a new UEI, its own unique identifier, its own tax ID and whatnot, it can take on the past performance of both joint venture partners. So if you do enter into a joint venture relationship with your mentor, that joint venture vehicle does take on the past performance of that mentor. So if a mentor has done significant business with the Army, Navy, Air Force, then that joint venture can take on that past performance. And it does allow you to go after contracts with your mentor's past performance, even though you maybe as a protege do not have any. And so essentially we find that a lot of our 8A firms, that's a great way for them to gain entrance into the market. And a lot of times there are a lot of larger contract vehicles that 8As are trying to go after, and they may not have the past performance or the experience to do it on their own. That joint venture vehicle is a great way for them to do that. So if you're looking to do that as an 8A and you're going after a sole source contract, those joint ventures do have to be approved in the district. But if you're looking to go after a competitive contract, they no longer have to be approved, but you do essentially need to share that information with Jill or myself as a BOS. And I believe that's it for the 8A program. This is just a high level overview. There is much more, but that's just kind of a quick and dirty overview about the 8A program. And I think it's HUBZone is next. So Jill, since I have it up, are there any questions first and foremost before I give you the baton?
I don't see any in the chat, and I'm not sure how to take over.
I was going to say, that's what I was going to say. I can continue to change the slides if you like.
Okay.
So that way you don't have to upload it, but let me turn off my camera. And then if questions do come up, you can answer them too. Okay.
All right, I just want to say it's a pleasure to work with Shonda today. We don't get the opportunity very often to co-present.
don't.
For those of you that I haven't met before, I'm Jill Nagy Reynolds. I'm at the SBA Columbus District Office. Shonda and I work together. So I will be talking about the HUBZone program. So I'm going to go through these fairly fast. There were regulation changes to HUBZone in 2020. Actually, I have a meeting next week. Apparently, there are further regulation changes to the HUBZone program, but everyone needs to take off their 8A hats because it's the eligibility criteria for HUBZone is a lot different than 8A. Well, except for the one main where you have to be 51% owned and controlled by US citizens. So what is a HUBZone? It's not the same as a HUD zone. It stands for Historically Underutilized Business Zone. So it was actually created by Congress to help small businesses within certain communities gain access to federal contracting opportunities. And HUBZone areas are typically areas of low median household income, high unemployment, or both. So the purpose of it was to increase employment opportunities and to stimulate capital investment in HUBZone areas. And at any given time, there are around 5,000 small businesses certified in the HUBZone program in the country. That's the entire United States, Puerto Rico, US territory. So there's not that many HUBZone companies. Next slide, please. It's what I call a very black and white certification. Your office is either located in a HUBZone or it's not located in the HUBZone. It's fairly easy to look in that to see that if your business fits that criteria. So the SBA has a HUBZone map that they maintain, and that is the authority to find out if your principal office is located in a HUBZone. That is the link to it on this screenshot here, but also it's just really easy to Google, just go to Google and then just type in SBA HUBZone. It'll take you to the HUBZone page, and you would plug in the address where the greatest number of your employees work. That is the HUBZone definition of principal office. So I like to give the example of say you have two locations. One location is an administrative office where you have 5 employees, but then you have a warehouse with 20 employees. The warehouse happens to be in a HUBZone, but the administrative office is not in a HUBZone. You still meet the definition of principal office because the warehouse is where the greatest number of your employees are working. So that is one of the key definitions for HUBZone. And the other one is how the SBA defines employees for the HUBZone program. So I have some slides that are dedicated to those definitions coming up here. But it's just really easy. No, you're fine. Plug the address in. It'll say, yes, HUBZone, no, you're not. Or just for fun, they will also put in redesignated. So if you plug in your address and you're in a redesignated area, that means that within the next 3 years, that area is no longer going to be in a HUBZone. So, and oh, you're right. Yeah. So actually, if you see the little key there, it's called a legend. I've been out of school for a while. Yes, a legend. So there's redesignated areas. If you look, there's like the diagonal lines or the straight lines if it's a disaster area. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. So if it's redesignated, when you plug in your address, you really have to think about whether or not you want to apply for HUBZone, because you will be able to maintain your certification during that period of time until the area is redesignated. All right, next slide, please. So the SBA regulates and implements the HUBZone program. SBA also determines which businesses are eligible, and certified businesses can be found on the SBA's dynamic small business search portal. Those of you that are doing business with the government, one of the best kept secrets of market research is the SBA Dynamic Small Business Search. In fact, if you become HUBZone certified or woman-owned certified, 8A certified, it will appear on your Dynamic Small Business Search page And that information is put there by the SBA. So the Dynamic Small Business Search portal is the authority for these certifications. For woman-owned, they've added a field where it'll say if it's pending or not. The others do not have that, but the moment that you become certified in HUBZone, 8A, or woman-owned, it will appear in your Dynamic Small Business Search profile. The only way, and I just got this call this morning, the only way that you can make changes to your Dynamic Small Business Search profile is first by logging into your sam.gov registration and then going into the SBA portal, which will allow you to make updates to certain sections of the SBA profile. SBA also is responsible for processing protests of eligibility regarding HUBZone contracts. So SBA has a pretty central role for HUBZone. As I mentioned briefly, the eligibility requirements, the only thing that it has in common with the 8A program, it's got to be 51% owned and controlled by US citizens. ANCs, which is Alaska Native Corporations, Community Development Corporations, or small agricultural cooperatives. I'll tell you, in Ohio, I've only worked with HUBZone companies that are 51% owned by US citizens. That doesn't mean that there aren't other states that process applications in the other categories. So you must be a small business. Shonda went into how the SBA defines small based on NAICS codes or number of employees. Principal office must be located within a designated HUBZone, and 35% of employees must reside in any HUBZone. It doesn't have to be the HUBZone where the administrative office is. Say you have a lot of remote workers. If those workers are located in a HUBZone, then they would count as that 35% definition. Next slide, please. Okay, so just to talk about principal office, because it can create some confusion, especially if you are in an industry like construction or like transportation, where the majority of your employees are on job sites. So principal office location of where the greatest number of your employees are working at any time. But if you have, there's an exception. If you have a primary industry such as construction or transportation, where your employees are on job sites, those employees are then exempt from the principal office definition. Okay, they still count towards the employee definition, but they are exempt from the principal office definition. Next slide, please. And I did see a question. I can't, hang on. Wasn't able to add my DUNS number to my SBA profile. You shouldn't have to. However, the HUBZone registration requires it. This is another ticket the help desk is working on for me. You can't add your DUNS number to the SBA profile. That's something that's inputted from SAM and then carried over to your SBA profile. And DUNS numbers aren't being used anymore. It's now the UEI, or Universal Entity Identifier, that was launched at the beginning of April. Okay. Okay, the response I received, it's an issue. Yeah, they're working on since going to UEIs. Okay, well, if you're trying to apply for HUBZone and you've sent that through the HUBZone help desk, you can email me and give me your application number, and I can also check on your behalf. The district office does not process HUBZone certification applications or woman-owned or 8A. But we can try and get a response from those varying offices if it seems like your application is at a standstill. So, the third part to HUBZone application and eligibility is that 35% of your employees must reside in a HUBZone. And oh no, my phone is across the room. Hang on, let me turn it off.
Welcome to our world.
Should have thought to mute that. Sure didn't. Okay. For HUBZone, the definition of an employee is anyone that works for your company at least 40 hours a month. They have to be payroll. They cannot be 1099 contract workers. Volunteers are not considered employees. SBA defines reside to mean living in a primary residence at least 180 days, or as a currently registered voter with the intent to live there indefinitely. Okay, so that's part of the, that rule still is in place, but there's been some changes to the HUBZone program regulations to try and make it a little bit more user-friendly because it is the certification that not only businesses are having a hard time maintaining, but also federal agencies are having a very hard time obtaining that 3% requirement for HUBZone participation because it's hard to maintain your eligibility in HUBZone. Next slide, please.
I'm sorry, it's for some reason sticking and I don't know why it's not going to the next. There we go. It's hard.
Okay. Okay, tips for HUBZone companies. I would say this is not just for HUBZone, it's for everybody. Start just to get yourself procurement ready, get help, do your homework as Shonda mentioned. The Mentor Protege program is a great resource, not only for 8A companies, but also HUBZone, women-owned, small business, and veteran-owned. And just remember, the certifications are just tools. They aren't guarantees of contracts. Over the years, we've met with a lot of businesses that spend all of their time getting certified instead of learning how the federal government works at the same time as getting certified, because there's a lot of energy that goes into certification. And if you put all the energy into the certification part of it, then having energy left to do market research can feel pretty uphill. So that's why there are resources like PTAC and SBA out there. But I would say this isn't just for HUBZone, it's for everyone. Next slide, please.
Trying.
That's okay.
I don't know why it's stuck.
Okay, as I mentioned before, there have been program changes to HUBZone because one of the greatest challenges with HUBZone was how often the HUBZone maps would be updated, and areas that were at one time HUBZone are then redesignated to not being HUBZone. To so much so to the point where when I train on HUBZone, I recommend to businesses to lease their office space because it just it would change often, but they have tried to stabilize the maps. So some of the challenges, small businesses found the program too difficult, again, confusing, burdensome requirements for maintaining certification. Federal agencies were failing to meet their 3% goal just because of how hard it is for small businesses to maintain their certification. And there's not federal agencies that can find qualified HUBZone companies. Communities experience mixed results because of the fluidity of the program. It made it difficult for communities to increase equity in their areas. So those were some of the challenges that were identified in 2020. So it's only been a couple of years. Next slide, please. And actually, no, it was 2019, right before the pandemic. So all of these things came out right before the pandemic. It'll be interesting to see now where we are with that. So the goals of the program, regulation changes were to stabilize the maps, expand more into rural areas, and recognize long-term investment in communities. And part of the ways they were doing that, next slide, please. So maps are updated every 5 years now. So that is really good news. And redesignated areas, as you saw the HUBZone map screen, where it had like the diagonal lines. So there is a 3-year transition period. So that's great. So if you find out your area is going to be redesignated, you have that 3 years to either move or just decide to not go after HUBZone opportunities anymore. It would just be a business decision on your part. So there's that 3-year transition period. I would say, just speaking from Ohio, so one of the things the slides didn't explain is that HUBZone is based on 3 different criteria. One of them is a qualified census tract. So that's most of our urban areas in Ohio. So think of Cleveland, Columbus, Cincinnati, Dayton. They all have pockets of HUBZone based on census tracts. Then there are qualified non-metropolitan counties. There used to be a lot more of them in Ohio, but now I think it's 7 counties out of 88 counties that are full HUBZone counties, and now they're mostly in Appalachia. And then also, if it's a Native American reservation, if it's a Native American reservation, that area is automatically HUBZone. And base realignment. So there's also Brock. If it's a military base that closed, that area would be considered HUBZone. So, but all of those things, when you plug your address into the HUBZone map, it'll show you right away if you are in one or not. And sometimes companies will call and say, I'm across the street from one. I mean, I am so close to a HUBZone that I could walk like 2 paces and I would be in it. Well, you're still not in one. So you can try and appeal it to SBA. I'm not sure how well that ends up working most of the time for businesses, but you could definitely give it a try. Next slide, please.
Something is wrong with my.
I mean, I like the sound of my own voice so much that when I'm pausing, I'm
wrong
like,
with my
wow.
lap. Trust me, I'm trying.
I know. What can we do? It's there we go. So this, why I mentioned all these changes happened right before the lockdown in 2020. So we had just gotten a governor designated areas for HUBZone, and everyone was so excited about it. SBA was working with the state of Ohio. State of Ohio was trying hard to find the rural communities that would fit this criteria, and then the entire focus of the world shifted. So I'm not sure if we have any at this point in Ohio that have been designated by our governor, but I'm assuming as things start transitioning back into post-COVID, that if there is such a thing, that more a new emphasis will be put on designated additional areas HUBZone based on this governor petition. So we were actually looking to find those areas, like I said, a couple of years ago. So I would need to get back with the state of Ohio to see if they're working on that anymore at this point. Next slide, please.
I unmuted so you can hear the struggle. Okay, there.
Okay, well, this one is an interesting, no, you're good, Chanda. This is an interesting rule. So if you have purchased a building that's in a HUBZone, and you enter into a long-term lease of 10 years or more, you may maintain HUBZone eligibility for up to 10 years, even if the office location no longer qualifies for HUBZone, which is great, but it does not apply to currently redesignated areas. So if you go in there and you're intending on buying an office space or a building, and you go into the HUBZone map area and find out that it's redesignated, that it doesn't apply, this rule doesn't apply to you. So I would give it some thought before executing that. Next slide, please. How are we on time? Oh my gosh, 2:57. Okay. It just, firms must recertify annually. That's a new change. It used to be every 3 years. Now it's every year. I would recommend that you wait until the SBA reaches out to you. A lot of times people are saying, hey, I'm supposed to renew and no one's gotten back with me. What I can do at the district office, again, is email on your behalf to see what's going on with it. But if you haven't heard from SBA yet, and you go into your SBA profile and it says that you're still HUBZone certified, then you are still HUBZone certified. So you should receive notification from the SBA office, and the HUBZone office at headquarters. Okay, next slide, please. We need. Are you there, Shonda? Is it our great SBA computer? I can't hear you. You're muted.
Yes.
There she is.
Oh, what slide is it?
I got through that one, I got through that one. Yeah, I think I'm almost at the end. Keep going. Keep going. Well, and I'm pretty much, yeah, stop there. Another thing that they changed is the employee designation. So, well, actually, that's not the slide I'm on. So attempting to maintain. So one of the biggest challenges for HUBZone is also the intent to maintain. So essentially, we have that 35% of HUBZone residency requirement. So what would happen traditionally is if a company was at the very minimum of that 35%, if they lost one employee, then they were no longer in compliance. And so that would create a lot of problems. Because if you lose that key employee, there goes your HUBZone certification. So they changed the regulation so that if you are at least maintaining 20% of your employees residing in a HUBZone, then you are attempting to maintain. So attempting to maintain means that you are actively trying to hire someone else so that you're back up to that 35%, but they understand that that can take some time. So if you are at that 20% or above, you're golden. If it's 19% or below, I would get hiring, get at least a 20%, so you have that attempt to maintain. But that is a great step in the right direction in terms of the employee requirement. Okay, next slide.
All right, so you can hear me. Oh, that's it.
Okay.
That's
and
it.
just for the sake of time, I don't see any questions in the chat for
No.
HUBZone, and there's always a lot of questions for woman-owned. And just to remind everyone, we are available by email if you have any questions. Number one, I know that it's taking longer than it should to process woman-owned small business and economically disadvantaged woman-owned small business applications. You can let us know that the application is taking longer, but again, these are processed at headquarters level, and all we can really do is pass on and try and get a status update for you. So woman-owned used to be a self-certification, but the National Defense Authorization Act, I can't remember when, maybe 2018, said, okay, SBA, you need to start processing an actual certification for woman-owned and economically disadvantaged woman-owned. So now SBA offers a certification program, an actual certification for, and I'm going to call them from now on WASB and Ed WASB. How would you know if your business is qualified for woman-owned small business certification? The woman would have to have 51% ownership in the business, would have to manage the daily operations, have managerial experience, be the highest officer, have proper NAICS codes. That's a really great thing to put in there because this program is really based on NAICS codes. The set-asides, the woman-owned and economically disadvantaged woman-owned set-asides are based on your industry. So Before you decide to apply for woman-owned, it's important to look and see if you have participating NAICS codes. And unlike 8A, where they would like for you to have a 2-year minimum in business, there's no minimum time in business requirement for woman-owned. Next slide, please.
Thank you. This was not planned. I think we need comic relief this afternoon, so forgive us for the technical difficulties, but just give us a few minutes. We may be about 10 minutes over, but we're almost at the end. So thank you. And here's Jill.
Well, I didn't mute it the first time.
I told them this wasn't planned. We just wanted to bring a little comic relief this afternoon.
I
I'm
know,
sure everybody.
yeah, we're bringing it.
We are.
Okay, so for woman-owned, it's important that everyone knows that there are two designations. There's a woman-owned small business and then economically disadvantaged woman-owned small business. The purpose of it was to make it easier for women-owned companies to compete and win federal contracts. And there is a 5% set aside for woman-owned and economically disadvantaged woman-owned small business. Next slide, please.
All right, I may see if something is wrong with my key. And I may see if Sharon can. Oh, it did come up finally. There we go.
Okay. And really the difference between the woman-owned small business designation and economically disadvantaged woman-owned small business is that it's based on your NAICS codes. So there are some NAICS codes that are woman-owned small business and some that are economically disadvantaged woman-owned small business. So to qualify as a woman-owned small business, your business must be a small business, 51% owned and controlled by a woman who, I went over the slide just a minute ago, that manages the day-to-day operations, makes long-term decisions for the business, holds the highest officer position, works at the business full-time during working hours. Next slide, please. So, pardon me, and for the economically disadvantaged, it has the same requirements as woman-owned, except that the woman business owner must be economically disadvantaged. So that economic disadvantage means $750,000 or less in personal assets, excluding your primary residence and your business equity. And the fair market value of all of your assets has to be 6 million or less. So, and 3-year average income is 350,000 or less. Next slide, please. So in order to qualify for the one, and this is the federal program, here's where things with woman-owned get confusing because there's there's the WBE program with the state of Ohio, and then there's also a WBE program for commercial contracts, and this WOSB is just for federal contracts. So if you have any questions about woman-owned at any various levels of government, you can just reach out to us and we'd be happy to talk to you about it. So in order to become woman-owned certified, the business must register in SAM and submit a woman-owned small business application through SBA's Beta Certify site. And I'm not sure I may have a slide. I think I do. There it is right there. Certify.sba.gov. And actually that is changed for woman-owned. It's now Beta Certify. But if you go to certify.sba.gov, there's also a link to the Beta Certify site. And that is where you create an account. And then if you're a woman-owned small business, you have to provide certain documentation like your operating agreement and just passport, proving citizenship, taxes to prove that you're small. And then if you're an economically disadvantaged woman-owned small business, you have to provide your personal taxes, and then a SBA Form 413, which is a personal financial statement. So that's the beta certified portal is where you can upload your information. And actually, they just did a refresh like 2 weeks ago to the beta, to the Certify site. So it looks a little bit different than that now. So we're going to have to update that slide. All right, next slide, please. If you need help, I know Shonda's been talking about PTAC. Well, I talk about PTAC all the time as well. If you need help with it, the certifications, you can always call us. You can call PTAC, but then you also like getting your government market, understanding it, where to go, all of those things, you can get assistance with PTAC as well. Shonda talked about the Mentor Protege program, how SBA does not identify mentors for proteges. I would say that you're right on the cusp of one of the best the networking events that Ohio has every year, and that's the Ohio Business Matchmaker. If you can go in person, it is a great opportunity for you to meet with your peers, your colleagues, other small businesses that are pursuing government contracts. You can learn so much more from them than you can learn from us as government representatives. So if you're able to go, definitely consider going. But that is our presentation for today. And here's our contact information. I would say in my case, definitely a better way to reach me is email, not because I'm trying to avoid talking to people on the phone, because I do like to talk, but that phone number, the 614-427-1352, has a really bad connection. So you can call me, but what I usually do is just call you back on my cell phone. So, which is I can put that in the chat as well. Does anyone have any questions?
I don't see any.
All right. All right, everybody. Well, if there are no further questions, then we will conclude for today. And I'm putting my Jill Nikki Reynolds. There you go. All right, thanks for hanging in with us. Just getting through the technical difficulties, but you know what, overall, I think it went pretty well. All right.
People say